All right, guys. Well, welcome to the November edition of the Atlanta Radio Club. Glad to have everybody here. We've got several folks. I know that we're coming from other clubs, and so welcome. You're always welcome to join us in our presentations. We have another great one tonight. Just a couple quick announcements. Obviously, the Stone Mountain Ham Fest is this weekend out at the Gwinnett County Fairgrounds. So do think about attending that and stopping by the Atlanta Radio Club table and saying hi. We'd like to get to know some of the members we don't see on a regular basis. So do stop by the table if you happen to make it to the Ham Fest this weekend. I believe the gates open at 8 and run until probably 3 or so in the afternoon, both days. So stop by and join us. Next weekend is the Ham Jam by North Fulton Amateur Radio League over in Forsyth County, I believe, somewhere off of 400 up near Roswell, I guess. Their website's in nfarl.org, and you can get directions there for that. That runs from about 8 until 1 o'clock on Saturday. If enough of us get together and go there, maybe we can do some lunch afterwards. So hopefully we'll have a good time with that. And then, of course, our second Sunday, Sundays in the Park, will be next weekend also on the 13th. And we'll be doing a Playing with Radios in the Park Sunday, probably all day. I don't have the exact times at the moment. We'll get those ironed out here in the next day and get those out to you. So if you, that's just a chance to come out and play radio. And if you have a radio or a new antenna you'd like to come try out, by all means, bring it with you. And any questions for newbies, this is a good chance for you to get out and see some stuff in action, ask some questions, and hopefully we can help you get you going with your own station with some ideas and so forth. So please do join us for that. That'll be Sunday the 13th, and it will be at Brook Run Park in Dunwoody, Georgia, which is just on the north end of the perimeter up off of, oh boy, what's the name of that road? Anyways, it's like the first exit west of Peachtree Industrial, North Peachtree, I think it is. Boy, I'm getting old. So the memory's going. Anyways, so do join us for that also, and we've got a lot coming up. So, and then of course we're still working on a place for the December holiday party. So stay tuned with that. If you don't get any announcements about things going on with the club, join our .io group, the ARC group at groups.io, and plus we have our Facebook presence, and stuff's also posted on our website at atlantaradioclub.org. So another great presentation tonight. I know a lot of people had a lot of questions about this topic, so I'm going to turn it over to our dashingly handsome, as always, Rob, our program manager, KI4UTY, and let him take it away.
Hey, John.
Oh, is that Stephen?
Yep, that's
all
me.
Right,
Sorry,
real quick.
I had a...
That's all right. Go ahead and give us a little repeater update real quick.
All right, so things are pretty much continuing as normal. I'm waiting for Jeff to deal with getting the cables made for the new controller. I'm going to have to talk to him about that. He, I don't know if he just forgot or what, but I can handle it if he doesn't want to. So that's basically what we're waiting on.
Okay.
And that's it.
Any other known problems or anything that you know of?
Nope, not that I can think of.
Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, Rob, go ahead and take it away now.
Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen.
Make sure I unmute over here. Yeah, we've been we've had a great series of speakers, and I've been trying. I guess the theme I've been trying to go for was antennas. We had several antenna presentations, and people have been asking for digital, just all kinds of aspects of digital. I'm trying to get an overview just of what's out there, but specifically, I want to focus on some of these things that people have been asking for. And something that I've heard a lot of questions from was fusion. In fact, one of our members, I guess it was Mark, I think when the first time you were at lunch, you said, hey, does anybody know anything about fusion? And we said, no. So I remembered that, and I said I want to try and remedy that. So I've got an expert. I got a fusion expert on here who's doing all kinds of things out in Colorado. They got it coming and going, and I'm sure he will talk about that. And Bill Buckwalter, W0SUN, and he's been on there listening to us. So it's time for us to start listening to him. So please take it away, Bill.
Okay, I look kind of pale here in this. You guys all hear me okay? How do you copy? Good? Thumbs up? Wow, man, my laptop is bright or something. Oh, well. Okay, I'll back away. There we go. All right, thanks a lot. Rob, it's good to see you on the Zoom meeting. My name is Bucky. Just call me Bucky, everybody else does. So I've been doing Fusion for quite some time. I do all aspects of digital radio. What do I do right now? Let me just tell you a little bit about what I do with digital. I'm a member of Colorado Digital.net. These are the guys that do Colorado HD there, Rob. I know Rob used to get on and all the time, and we used to do a net, Colorado HD, and I am now officially a member of this group of guys that do digital radio. And another thing I do is SKYHUBLINK.com. This is a very large system based in Colorado that's now spread worldwide. We have, let's see, about 40 or 50 Allstar repeaters, mostly in Colorado, probably more than that even, joined up throughout the country and Canada. And we have 30 Fusion repeaters all connected. That's SKYHUBLINK.com. I do a digital learning net every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Atlanta time on DMR Talk Group 310847. Last night we did it. We went to 103 check-ins. That was crazy. So it's that one's growing with a lot of interest, and that's a lot of fun. If you ever get a chance, join us on Talk Group 310847 at 9 p.m. on DMR. So I noticed that you guys have a DMR repeater, and you also have a D-Star repeater. Yeah, is that right?
That's right.
Cool. So how many people raise your hands use D-Star? Anybody use D-Star? Yes. All right, Richard. Cool. I'm actually, you can see you guys. Great. So D-Star is kind of becoming kind of like older technology in my experience. I don't do D-Star as much as I'd like to. What about DMR? Everybody, you familiar with DMR? All right. So have you guys, what talk groups, what do you use DMR for? I'm just kind of curious.
We've actually got a Georgia DMR net. We've got 3113 is Georgia, and we've got subgroups of that. 31131 is Atlanta, and I think that's the Atlanta one. Then there's a Georgia one that the net is on. Aries has got something on there.
Okay.
So
great.
Got some things going on.
DMR is great when you want to talk, especially out of the US. Tons of people around the world use it. It's probably the most popular digital radio out there. The up and coming one is Fusion, though. That's what everybody's hearing about. So let me talk about Fusion. How do I share my presentation? Do you know?
You should have the option there at the bottom to hit share.
Okay. Let me see. Share. Cool. Share screen. Let me do that. Okay. All right, cool. I'll share my presentation. All right. Do you guys see my presentation here?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna enlarge it. Do you see me too? No?
Yes.
Oh, you see me too? So I can't do my face and while I'm doing this? Okay, all right, good. All right, so let me go ahead and start this from the beginning. Okay, you guys see this okay?
We do.
All right, good. All right, again, I'm Bucky, W0SUN, Denver, Colorado, and digital confusion. I'm here to end the fusion confusion a little bit, maybe start a fusion revolution, because I noticed that there's no fusion in Atlanta. I went and looked up. You guys have like 3 nodes, and that's it. There's no really repeaters, so we gotta work on that. All right, so I'd love to get that going. There's other places the same exact way. So I'm going to, this is actually a copy of a slideshow that I did for Denver Radio Club. And I'm going to go through some of these slides pretty quickly. I'm going to really put an emphasis on Fusion and WIRES-X. So I want to talk about the ham radio digital dimension or digital domain. I call it different things. The Yaesu digital world. What is the fusion digital world, I should say. Oh yeah, so we have the Yaesu digital fusion world, and then we have the other fusion world, and there's actually more than one. You probably know about this. I'm going to go through this really quick because this is digital in general. Why use digital at all? You guys probably know this. You can go probably further with FM analog, but you start getting staticky and things like that. But with digital, you can actually go really far and have a great signal, and then it quits. So maybe you can't go as far as FM, but you can go far with great sound. So a lot of times digital is preferred because you don't have to deal with all the interference or static. Types of digital world or digital radio. We've got, I'm going to talk on this. This is what I say executive summary. This is the summary. I'm going to focus on the Yaesu part and kind of skip over the D-Star and DMR part. Yaesu, WIRES-X, rooms, and nodes. I want to talk about that. In DMR, we have talk groups, and in D-Star, we have reflectors. And in the fusion world, we've got rooms and nodes. We've got Yaesu world, and we have a non-Yaesu world. And how do those relate to each other? So you probably know about the DMR types of networks out there. Let me just talk about this. You got Yaesu WIRES-X. You got Yaesu IMRS. I don't know if you ever heard of that. Anybody here ever heard of IMRS? Okay, Yaesu actually has 2 networks out there. We have Yaesu WIRES-X, and then we got Yaesu IMRS. IMRS, and this is probably the only time I'm going to talk about it on this slideshow. IMRS is a way to connect Yaesu repeaters using network cards and internet, but it's closed. You can build your own closed Yaesu system called IMRS, and it's a system-wide repeater-to-repeater network where you can actually have like, let's say I have Stone Mountain, Atlanta, then I have Atlanta, and I want to have repeaters on both, but I don't want to key them up all the time. So I can key up all of the networks or all the both servers or repeaters. I think of them as servers, both repeaters, or depending on whatever I put in for an ID, I can key up with a different ID and key up only one, and key up with another DGID and key up another one, or I can put in another DGID and key up all at the same time. So you can do that with Yaesu. Yaesu Fusion non-WIRES-X, that's called IMRS. That's a way to link repeaters and create an like a emergency infrastructure using IMRS. Very similar to DMR non-Brandmeister. So there's several DMR networks out there as well. So Yaesu, you can do the same thing. Now you've got number 3. Can you see the slide there? Number 3, I'll put my little tiny mouse right there. Hotspot reflectors, you've got a YSF world. They call it YSF, but it's really not Yaesu. It's non-Yaesu, but it's using Fusion. So you can go out to the Yaesu YSF network, and then you can go to the FCS networks. That's what I'm going to talk about. This is the executive secretary, executive summary. You got the D-Star reflectors, you got the old-fashioned REF, you got the little bit newer XRF, and you got the really new XLX reflectors. These are the really cool XLX reflectors that are now out there in the public domain, open source. People can develop to them and really customize them. It's not just for D-Star anymore. You can connect D-Star, DMR, Fusion, all to these reflectors and use it as a hub to connect to each other. So that's the new really cool thing in digital world is XLX reflectors. It comes from the D-Star world, but actually Yaesu and DMR, not Yaesu, but Fusion and DMR has really adopted XLX reflectors. And you got DMR, Brandmeister, DMR Plus, Moto Turbo, DMR Mark, all these different networks out there. The most common and popular one is Brandmeister. And we have one in Colorado called Rocky Mountain Ham. They just received a $300,000 grant, and they have the best equipment, the best Motorola, everything. So, and you got P25. Have you guys ever used P25 or ever heard of P25? Digital mode. It's kind of getting popular, a little bit popular in Colorado. There's a few people that like to use it. P25 comes from the commercial world. This is where DMR came from. And actually, Yaesu has roots in this too. P25 around 2001, 2002 was phase 1, and they actually used C4FM in phase 1. This is where the Yaesu Fusion world came from, is phase 1 P25. When they went to phase 2 in about 2014, 2010, 11, the commercial world is now adopting heavy into P25 phase 2. They switched to a DMR type world, but kept the same types of chips. And DMR and Yaesu both came out of Yaesu more phase 1 and DMR out of phase 2. I don't really want to, that's just a really quick history. Let me go on. That was the executive summary. I just covered the reflectors. I don't really want to talk about them much more than I did. We all know there's different kinds of reflectors, and I just kind of touched on this on that one main slide. So if you don't mind, I'm going to continue on here. The different types of DMR networks, I did cover that just briefly, and that's all I want to do on that. And I'm going to cruise through these DMR slides. You guys have any questions on DMR time slots? You guys understand that while I'm on this slide? You got time slot 1 and time slot 2.
Here's your chance, guys. Any questions?
So when you set up a DMR radio, you're gonna have to know time slot 1 and time slot 2, and you're gonna have to know tones. This is a good one. Now I want to talk about this because you're gonna get a lot of information about this. This is the comparison on 3 types of digital modes out there. We're gonna talk about the big 3: Fusion, DMR, and D-Star. Here's the difference between them. And I want to talk about the ones highlighted in yellow. So D-Star uses a vocoder Ambi Plus chip. These were contained in P25 phase 1. By the time DMR came around, they didn't want such a close chip, so they asked the company that produces these chips to produce a more open chip for the government that they could maybe get a little bit more specifications on. So they came out with Ambi 2 chips. And Fusion went ahead and used those same Ambi 2 chips. So that is why when you use a Pi-Star, or an open spot to hotspot, it's easy to go from DMR to Fusion and Fusion to DMR. But these same Pi-Star hotspots cannot cross mode over from DMR to D-Star or D-Star to DMR. They can only do DMR to Fusion and Fusion to DMR. The reason is because they use different chips. So D-Star is very difficult to transcode. So when we're talking about transcoding, we're talking about merging whatever digital mode you have so that you can talk to each other. And that's what a group that I'm with, we specialize in different methods to transcode. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. So DMR and Fusion, they're buddies. D-Star is the odd man out. All right, so let's talk about the bandwidth. This is really cool. The D-Star uses 6.25 kilohertz. The DMR uses 12.5, and Fusion uses 12.5. But DMR uses time slot 1 and time slot 2. That's why you have 2 highlighted here in yellow, and I'm going to move my little tiny mouse so you can see that. I should have made that bigger, but time slot 1 and time slot 2. So at any time when you're talking on DMR, you're only using half. So you're using only 6.25. However, you can use the repeater and have 2 conversations at the same exact time, simultaneously using time slot 1 or time slot 2. But the modulation, the quality of modulation is comparable to D-Star because you're only using half the bandwidth. Where Fusion, it used the whole thing, 12.5 kilohertz bandwidth. So the modulation is actually better when you're going Fusion to Fusion. When you're talking to each other, it's a much better experience. This chart just shows you why Fusion is the best. There's good and minuses to both, but Fusion really is in quality. If you're going Fusion to Fusion, it's the best. If you start corrupting it with DMR and D-Star in the same place, then it starts to degrade a little bit. And you take the internet, and then you have packet loss, which is digital interference, in my opinion. Then sometimes people say, oh, that digital is not too great. And let me ask you a question really quick while I'm going through these slides. Do you need the internet to do digital radio? Do you have to have the internet? Anybody want to answer? Do you have to? I mean, people say, I can't do digital. I don't, you know, you have to use the internet. It's not real ham radio. But you actually don't need the internet to do any type of digital. You can go simplex digital to digital. So you can have a digital repeater out there and just use it off the internet and have really good, nice quality sound. So I know a lot of people that have a Fusion repeater and enjoy the digital experience. So the pros about Fusion: Yaesu Fusion is the easiest. It's designed around ham radio. C4FM has the best sound quality. DMR is really good because it has good talk group organization, and DMR uses the best use of bandwidth. The cons about these digital modes are Yaesu Fusion is proprietary. It's very closed. DMR, the con is it has complicated code plugs, color code, time slots, zones, and it's based on commercial radio and adopted into the ham radio world. And the cons about D-Star, it has that old ambi chip, really difficult to use. Any questions yet?
And it's proprietary too.
It's very proprietary. Yes. D-Star is very proprietary. Thank you. All right. This is really quick. I'm really cruising through on these. I'm gonna hotspots. Anybody use hotspots? Do you guys have any questions on hotspots? Do you want me to cover that at all? Hotspots are just like they're actually just like little tiny repeaters in your house. So if you buy a hotspot, DMR or D-Star actually introduced hotspots to the world with D-Star radio. They called them dongles. And now the whole digital world calls these hotspots. They're little devices like this guy right there. That's a hotspot. And that's a open spot hotspot. That's really cool. It has a battery operated, so I can actually put this in my pocket and talk through it,
Is
connect
that a
it.
3?
It's an open spot 3. Yes.
Yeah, I've got
I
a
love-
1. Yeah.
Cool. 1 is pretty nice too. This is actually a hotspot. How am I? There we go. It's a little USB stick with a little antenna that you can connect through your computer and connect your talk to this little antenna with your radio and
Is
have
that
a
the
little.
Blue DV?
This is yeah, it's using Blue DV software. It's a little Zoom Spot USB stick that you can get. So there's all different kinds. They're little like having your own little mini digital only, not analog, digital only little hotspot. And the one in the picture down at the bottom of the screen is this guy right here. And then this guy is the one on the other picture. Anyway, let me continue on. You got all kinds of hotspots. It's pretty cool to have once you, oh, there's the open spot 1 that Rob has.
Yeah.
So there's now an open spot 4 and digital world on a budget. If you want to get into digital radio, what I recommend is that you get a Yaesu FT70D, $150, or you can get a DMR for about $80, but it's harder to use. By the time you start using that, you're going to spend about think of it as a project. Once you buy it, you think you're going to use it that same day or that's 2 days later. It ain't going to happen. You're going to spend it. Think of it as a 2-week project if you get a DMR radio. At least 2 weeks to learn it. If you get a Yaesu Fusion radio, you can get this up and running in a day. If you have a Yaesu Fusion repeater, if you don't, then you're going to have to spend some more time and get a jumbo spot. You can get a kit for $70. Prices have gone up, so now they cost about $120. It's Chinese clone. It works great. It's a jumbo spot for about $120. So for a $150 radio and $150 jumbo spot, you can be on Fusion and talk around the world. With these jumbo spots, you can also use a DMR radio to it too. That's digital world on a budget. If you want to, this is what the Pi-Star software, this is the open spot software. This is the Blue DV software to run all these different hotspots. And this is, let's go into the Yaesu world. This is what you want to talk about. So the Yaesu world, a very closed world. And now I'm going to focus on just the Yaesu Fusion world. So you got all these radios, you got some handy talkies, the FT70, you got the FT3 and the FT5 handy talkies, and you've got these DR2X repeaters. DR1X is the old one, a DR2X repeater. You've got a digital interface, and I'll talk about that, a Wires X. It's called an HRI 200. It's this device right here. I'm holding it in my hand. This is the interface to put a repeater or a digital online. A repeater has to have one of these somewhere in the system to get on the internet. It's called an HRI-200. It costs about $120. When do you have to use it and when do you not have to use it? You got the mobiles out now. You got the FTM 400. That's a really nice mobile. Down in the left-hand corner, it's a touch screen mobile radio. It has APRS. This is my first Fusion radio I bought. I bought it not because of Fusion. I bought it because I liked APRS and the attractive touch screen. And then Fusion came later as a bonus. You've got the WIRES-X software, and you've got even more radios now. What I want to, I already talked about this. We have Yaesu WIRES-X and IMRS. This is kind of a summary. WIRES-X, this is the top 1 and 2 is the Yaesu world. The bottom 3 and 4 is the non-Yaesu world. You enter the Yaesu world through Yaesu blessed nodes and repeaters only. You have these other places on the internet called YSF and FCS. This is non-Yaesu. And if you have a hotspot, you cannot get into the Yaesu world unless somebody goes and bridges the non-Yaesu world to the Yaesu world. This is important. So just remember that you got the Yaesu world and you got the non-Yaesu world. And I'll talk about this. All right, so let's talk about these terminologies. C4FM, Fusion, and WIRES-X. The common mistake is people use this interchangeably. Now I'm going to slow down. This is important. C4FM. Fusion radios use C4FM. P25 phase 1 radios use C4FM. This is using C4FM, and this is using C4FM. Now, is this using Fusion? Technically, no. All these devices do not do Fusion. They do C4FM. This Yaesu radio does Fusion. What is the difference? Fusion is the name that Yaesu puts on their version of C4FM. And what's the difference? And then how does WIRES-X play in all this? How does it all fit together? This is important. This is the most important thing that you can learn almost from this presentation. If I start at the bottom and have a radio, if I buy a Baofeng really nice, reasonable radio off the internet, and it's just a regular FM radio, then that FM radio is going to take up the whole square or the whole radio. But if I buy a Yaesu radio, it's going to have at the bottom layer, you can transmit with a toggle of a button. You can put your transmission out with FM, or you can put it out C4FM. But other devices can do that too. All the hotspots use C4FM. They don't use FM, but they use C4FM. So what makes a radio system fusion? It's the brand name, but it's also, they add a little piece called AMS. AMS is really cool. AMS means automatic mode select. And it adds, this is the feature that really makes Fusion Fusion, is because C4FM does not have AMS. Fusion has AMS. AMS means if my wife, KD0HLP, and my son, what's his call sign? KF7CBU. So we've all got our radios and we've all got our cars. So my son and I have new Fusion radios. So this is really cool because I've made memory slot 3, 146.58. I've put that into my memory, and I can either do it with AMS or without AMS. If I do it with AMS, I'll show you how this works. This is cool. But my wife doesn't have a Fusion radio. She only has an FM radio. So, but I've programmed all 3 radios with memory number 3, 146.58. When we all get together and we're talking on all of our radios, we're going to use FM. So my wife leaves and I want to talk C4FM System Fusion to my son, but it's on a memory 3. I don't want him to change memory. He's just a simplex. He's listening to 146.58. If I transmit with Fusion and he has AMS enabled, it's going to automatically switch to digital. If my wife, and he leaves it on memory 3, if my wife transmits to Wesley with her FM, it's going to automatically switch back to FM. So depending on whatever, you can use the same memory slot, and whatever it hears, it's going to switch back and forth automatically. That's automatic mode select. You can program your memory with it or without it. That's the really cool, that's the whole cool thing about Fusion. So FM, C4FM, yes, but System Fusion has AMS. Do hotspots have AMS? No, they don't. But people call them Fusion. That's okay. Use them interchangeably, but please understand the difference between the two. All right, let's, I've already talked about these terms. I talked about WIRES-X is Yaesu's method of bringing to the ham world the ability to control their Yaesu network. It's really confusing because Yaesu's digital world is called WIRES-X. It's the WIRES-X network. But your radio also uses WIRES-X. So on a Yaesu radio, you've got AMS and Fusion, right? Think about WIRES-X as a program or a chip embedded into your Fusion radio. So every Yaesu Fusion radio has this firmware that if I push the WIRES-X button, I go into WIRES-X mode. If I'm in WIRES-X mode, and if I'm in range of a WIRES-X Fusion repeater, I can click on WIRES-X and then I can hit that frequency with that repeater. And once I'm connected, I can control the repeater and disconnect it from one room and reconnect it to another room. I'm using WIRES-X firmware to go into WIRES-X mode to talk to the repeater to get into the WIRES-X network to disconnect from one room and go into another room. That's how it works. That's WIRES-X. So you got to be careful what you're talking about with WIRES-X. Are you talking about the WIRES-X mode? Are you talking about WIRES-X network? It's used both ways. IMRS, I talked about that. That's the way of linking repeaters together. System Fusion, that's the ability of Yaesu's radios to automatically switch between analog FM and digital FM, C4FM. Did I say digital FM? Anyway, I didn't write that. This is important. Okay, this is another thing to remember. I'm going to pause really quick. Does anybody have any questions? And I'm going to go back to that summary again.
Yeah, what does C4 and C4FM stand for?
Ah, that's a good question, man. You have to ask me that one. I think I might have it in somewhere in this slide, and I'll go find it. That's a good one. Somebody should look that up if you have an internet, and then you can report back to us because I don't want to take the time to look it up. Yeah, somebody see if they can find out what C4FM stands for. It's not Yaesu's term. It's again, like I said, other radios use C4FM. System Fusion versus System Fusion 2. You're going to hear Fusion and Fusion 2. In 2019, they came out with System Fusion 2. Before 2019, if you want to put your own, let's say you don't have any repeaters, you're living out on some island that has internet, and you want to talk to the rest of the world with System Fusion. You can't reach a repeater, but you do have internet. So thank you for that. You have some satellite internet. So what you want to do is you want to put your personal digital node together, and you want to get a Fusion radio connected to the internet. So in 2019 and previous to that, you had to use a computer. You had to get one of these devices called an HRI 200, connect it just goes in with a USB and connects to your computer, and your Windows, it has to be a Windows computer, and your Windows computer connects to the internet, and you download some software, and just if you just connect, let's say an FT3, FT70D is a cheap one. It doesn't have the interface, but FT3 and FT5 does. So I can put a radio connected to this box, and I now have a way to get on to the Yaesu WIRES-X network. After 2019, they updated the firmware, or you could do the firmware update on all the Yaesu, not all the Yaesu radios, but many of the Yaesu radios. Now you don't need this box. It's contained in the new firmware. So all the new Yaesu radios have the updated firmware. So you actually don't need to have this box anymore. The only reason to have this box is if you want to use different radios to connect. You can use this box, or if you want to establish a room yourself, if you want to, it's like creating your own talk group. If you want to create your own room, the only way you can register a room and get that working is to have one of these boxes. But if you don't want a room, you don't need the box. So let me, I already did talk about this a little bit. This is the, I want to talk about, this is important. So I talked about in one of the slides, if you look at the bottom row, FDMA versus FDMA and TDMA. TDMA means DMR, time slice. It's a time, I forget what the DMA stands for, but so TDMA is Brandmeister. So it takes that 12.5 kilohertz and splits it in two, and you have time slot 1 and time slot 2. So with Fusion, and this is just a comparison to give you an idea, sideband uses 2.7 kilohertz on one side of the band, AM 6, FM uses 16 kilohertz. Add a little bit extra, you typically need 25 kilohertz for a repeater. When you space them out, you need to space them at 25 kilohertz a piece, but it pretty much uses approximately 16 kilohertz, where a digital uses a much less. The really cool thing about D-Star, it only uses such a small amount of bandwidth, but the modulation suffers. So with Yaesu, we can have different types of modes. We can have, and you take this little red button. Oh shoot, I somehow went to the wrong. Okay, you take this little red button on your radios, and it's over to my left. I'm gonna move my tiny mouse right there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a red button. If you just toggle that button, you can toggle between voice wide and digital narrow and FM. There's 3 modes. FM is analog, digital narrow, and voice wide, digital voice. What that means is digital narrow, it uses some of the bandwidth for data error correction and data. So if you want to speak, and this is the really cool thing about digital radio, when you use digital narrow, it transmits your call sign, your location, if you have a GPS in your radio, it transmits your GPS, it transmits your compass heading. It's almost like APRS. It transmits a lot of data. That's digital narrow, because you're making the 12.5 kilohertz segment, and you're using some for your voice and the rest for data. Also, data error correction. Now let's talk about voice wide. Is you can actually use the whole 12.5 kilohertz, to get the best voice quality over digital. When do you want to use this? I don't recommend using this with repeaters. I do recommend using this simplex to simplex. If you do have a Fusion only repeater, yeah, you can use voice wide. It sounds pretty good. So, but if that repeater is using wires X and you connect to another room, chances are, if you're using voice, the repeater won't allow it to connect to other systems. In order to connect to other systems, you really should be on digital narrow because you need all the data to go with it. Otherwise, people might not be able to hear you, or you might be may not be able to communicate over some systems. There's several systems that have, like SKYHUBLINK.com. They've got DMR, D-Star, IRLP, Echolink, Analog, Allstar coming into the same system. So you absolutely must use digital narrow to communicate. So that's the difference between digital and digital wide. Any questions on that? Okay. So what makes it Fusion? Fusion is different from D-Star and DMR. It's backwards. Oh, System Fusion is automatically backwards compatible with analog FM. What do I mean by that? If you put up a new Fusion repeater and not everybody has a Fusion radio, you can use automatic mode select on that repeater. So you can give it a tone and have a split personality repeater where if people hit it with an FM signal, it's going to use just like an FM radio. I mean, it's going to be just a normal FM repeater. If you hit it with a digital signal, it can switch to Fusion and use the nice digital quality sound. So if you're replacing a repeater, if clubs are replacing a repeater, repeater in and people can still use it without a Fusion radio. So they can, it'll be split. So let's say I connect this to the internet and I want to use wires X. You got to be careful. If it's a small club, this is great. So if I want to hit it with a digital and I want to go into wires X and disconnect it and reconnect it somewhere where there's a bunch of people and there's lots of transmissions, and it's called like Echolink or something, that's great. But then somebody comes and keys up with an FM signal, it'll switch over to FM. And make sure you have a tone squelch, not just a squelch, but a tone squelch if you do this. But the really cool thing is, if you're just mildly using it on Fusion, you could actually have a repeater do both. It's really fun. If you're getting a lot of use, I would not recommend that, but if you're not getting a lot of use, it's great. It's really great. So if the QSO starts as FM, the repeater comes back as FM. If the QSO starts as C4FM, it comes back as C4FM. All right, so Fusion, easy to set up. The neat thing about Fusion radios, if you just buy a radio and you have a Fusion repeater, you don't have to register your call sign. In DMR and D-Star, to use reflectors or to use a DMR repeater, you have to register your call sign with a DMR ID. D-Star, if you want to use a certain kind of reflector, you have to register for a D-Star ID. So with Fusion, you do not. You just put in your call sign and you use it. Excellent digital qualities. You can actually send pictures over the air. You can buy a microphone with a camera on it and send pictures over the air. I only know one person that does that. And they use it for weather-related reasons. So it also gives your distance, your call sign, your direction, and you can keep tabs of other users and where their location is. All Fusion radios can perform analog and digital communications both. Fusion radios accept the 991 have APRS built in with GPRS. So GPS. The 991 doesn't do APRS. The FT70 doesn't do APRS because it's a cheaper radio. It does not have GPS. And via WIRES-X, they can communicate around the world. Again, the executive summary. We talked about if this is the most important thing, understand the difference between these three terms. C4FM is at the bottom, Fusion is at the middle with AMS, and WIRES-X is the application or the mode to manipulate data and change rooms. That's the most important thing about System Fusion. Yeah, that's the most important thing you can get out of this presentation right there. Any questions? You guys got this perfect? All right. Sweet. So, if somebody says, yeah, my hotspot does Fusion, in your mind, you're thinking, no, it really doesn't, you idiot. No, just kidding. It really doesn't do Fusion, but that's okay because everybody says that. So yeah, that's cool. But to people like me that do this like almost for a living, when I hear people say that, it just kind of a little bit inside my mind goes, ew, it's not really Fusion, it's C4FM, but just a little thing. Okay, repeaters. These are great. Yaesu did a great giveaway. They had a deal going for months and months and months where you could buy a DR2X brand new repeater for $700. I got a used DR1X repeater for $400. That's cheaper than my radio. So I have my own repeater. It's an older one, but it's a Yaesu DR1X repeater. So these DR2X repeaters are great. They do FM and FM. Again, you see that in the bottom picture, I've got an HRI 200 sitting next to a duplexer. That's a UHF duplexer. It's the small ones that you can buy off of Amazon, actually. So again, that's the size of these guys. But in order to have a repeater, you got to have an HRI 200, and you got to have a Windows PC, and you got to have WIRES-X software. Again, how do we access WIRES-X? You hit the red button, and you go into WIRES-X mode. And once you go into WIRES-X mode, you start getting data. For example, I hit the WIRES-X button and I go into a repeater here in Denver called the W0TX repeater. It shows me the node and the room. I stay on the node, which is W0TX repeater. That's the name of the node, but I switch the room. So I want to move into a different room. I manipulate it with the screen and go into a different room. So I'm not going to go into detail how to do this with your radio, but that's what you do. So that's every radio that you see in this picture is actually in WIRES-X mode right there. So and the FT set, every room has a number associated with it, and every node has a number associated with it. So if you have a cheaper FT70D, you're going to have to know the number of the room instead of the name. With the pricier radios, you don't need to know the number. You can do both. All you have to do is search and find the name of the radio. So the cheaper radios, it's great though, but you can still go in and change rooms. You just have to maybe use your smartphone and look up the number. All right, so the relationship between nodes and rooms. This is a room, and we have 3 nodes in this room. We have this big room called the WIRES-X room, 63969, and we have a repeater in this room, and we have a simplex node. Yaesu calls it a gateway. I don't like that name. that just means a simplex neighborhood node. I call it a neighborhood node. And then they have a smaller node, which is a personal digital node. So you can have 3 types of nodes. You can have a repeater, or a neighborhood node, or a personal node. What's the difference? A neighborhood node, I get on a decent radio with 5 watts and put up a really big antenna. And in the Denver area, I can get out about 12 miles going simplex with my own node, and I could just drive around and use it. Other people can use it too, but it only does simplex. It's not a repeater, but it works great. I don't need a repeater. I can just use that node. Or when I travel, I make my little handy talkie into a little personal node. So I can even have a personal node or a neighborhood node with a bigger radio or a big repeater inside a room. So number 1 is your personal digital node. Number 2 is your neighborhood simplex node. Yaesu calls it a GW, a gateway, or you got a Yaesu repeater. And you take that AMS button or the toggle button, that little red button on all the Yaesu radios, and you can toggle that between C4FM or FM, or if you hold it down, you can go into WIRES-X mode. This is the WIRES-X software. Where do you see this software? You don't if you're on a radio and you're talking to the repeater, but behind the repeater, there's a computer somewhere running this software. It's either tied directly to the repeater or it's got a remote HF connection or a RF connection to the repeater. Either way, somewhere along that chain, there is a Windows computer. It has to be Windows running the Windows software. Let me show you what this is. What you're looking at, if you can see that room, there's 2 nodes inside that room. And this is actually a picture of my screen that I took. There's a repeater. There's 2 repeaters inside this room. There's a Parker Radio Association repeater and a Denver Radio Club repeater. And we're talking to each other. We joined both clubs into the same room. I went to the Denver Radio Club room called the W0TX room. That's their call sign. With the K0PRA, that's the Parker Radio Club call sign. And I moved it from Parker's room into the Denver Radio Club room. And I made it so we're all happy family and talking to each other. And that's how you do it. It's a little different than talk groups. Do you see that slide enough a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about there? Let me give you another illustration. Okay, so I have a room here called the W0TX room. I want my neighborhood node to talk to my other node. Let's say I am going to be in Utah visiting my kids and grandkids. So I have my personal node and I travel with my personal node. Basically, that means I have 2 handy talkies and a computer, and I can connect without an HRI 200. I connect my FT3 and make it a node, put it in HRI mode, and I can walk around using this radio, talking to this radio, which acts like a little mini repeater, which is connected to my computer. Now I want to bring my little personal node and I want to talk to the repeater, but I'm in a different state. And then my wife is at home talking on my personal gateway or my neighborhood node, but we want to talk to everybody. So we want to put all these nodes into the room. So what I want to do is I can move and manipulate all these nodes. I can put the neighborhood node in the room. I can put the personal node in the room. I can move the repeater out of the room. You get the idea. It's just like a chat room. Here is a list of 2 nodes. Notice that you can call the node whatever you want. I'm using the Yaesu suggested names, which is -GW for a gateway. They call a gateway a neighborhood node. It's misleading. A gateway is a simplex node that is situated so other people can get on that system. So everybody in my city of Centennial can use my simplex node and use it and manipulate it, kind of like a repeater. W0TX repeater, you see a DTMF, they're called DTMF codes. Every node has a 5-digit code, every repeater has a 5-digit code, and every room has a 5-digit code. So basically you move the nodes in and out of rooms. Now, most of the time, 80% of the time, to connect to a repeater, I just go into the room. Can you bypass the room and connect to the repeater specifically? Yes and no. By default, it's no. You have to go in and configure it specially to allow someone to connect to it. This is dangerous territory because if somebody connects to your repeater and somebody's using it and talking on it in a room, it's going to yank it out of that room and join your node-to-node communication. That's why by default it is off. In a smaller environment, this is perfectly acceptable. With my neighborhood node, I have it turned on. With a repeater, I have it turned off. So can you connect node to node? Yes, you may if you configure it as such, but most people don't go node to node. Most people put their nodes into a room. It's kind of like DMR. If you go talk group, it's great. You have a group mode and you go into a talk group, but you can also go personal to personal with DMR. You go in personal mode and use their personal DMR ID. You can have your own specific conversation, and not everybody can hear you. So people won't be able to go into that talk group because there is no talk group. You're going personal to personal. The only people that can hear you is people on the repeater if they have promiscuous mode on, but that's a whole different story. In the DMR world, the traditional DMRs could only hear you on the talk group if you're transmitting on that talk group. Nowadays, people take DMR and they make it promiscuous, so it listens to all the talk groups, whatever's happening on the repeater, but not all radios can do that, but that's a different story. But it's very similar. So node to node is like personal DMR ID to DMR ID. Most people don't do that. They go into the room. Any questions on that? So, yeah.
I've got one. Let's say a repeater is only in one room at a time, right?
A repeater is only in one room at a time. That's correct.
So
It cannot be in 2 rooms.
If I want to connect to a repeater in Virginia, I would have to know what room that repeater was in, and then tell my repeater to get into that room.
Yeah. Yes, but let me show you a little secret. Look at this repeater. Look at the ID 30931. Look at the room 40931. There's a correlation there. So they're always, the digit is up. It's always like 1,000 up. So if you go into a room, there's going to be a node that was associated with that room at one point. Not always, but somewhere. So chances are you can find the number. Also, you can search on the web. You can search, there's a way to go to a website and you can find out all the nodes and repeater IDs and everything. So if I want to connect to that repeater, here's the difficult thing I have. So there's people that put wires X up, but they don't really publish a good way to get into your room. If it was me and it was my club, I would broadcast the heck out. I'd put it on my website. I'd put it on all the search engines. I would do everything and say, come into my Fusion room. But some clubs don't do that. Some people, some entities don't do that. So it's hard to find them. DMR, how do you find people on DMR?
Individual people?
Yeah. You do a search on their DMR ID. It's pretty easy. What I do is I go to pistar.uk and they have a good DMR search tool. That's what I do. Or you can go to radioid.net. That's the official one. You can do that too. You can go to Yaesu and search and find out all these nodes. You can search by state. You can categorize it by state, et cetera, et cetera. It's really easy, pretty easy to find these. So if you connect to the node, chances are probably a 70% chance you're going to get rejected because they didn't configure it. If they did configure it, you're going to be accepted to go node to node. So you got to find out what room they're in. That's the hard part. So yeah, it can be challenging in WiresX to figure that out. Okay, so when you light up, this is the software. When people are actually talking on the repeater, it turns green. So if there was 2 nodes in there, temporarily it spreads out and shows you their call sign. So this is 2 people having a QSO going through the repeater, and this is my neighborhood node listening, and they're having a QSO, and if I go into my WiresX software and look, this is what it looks like. So every time somebody talks, some node somewhere lights up. And this is a room with a bunch of nodes in it, a lot of nodes. You can have 1, 0, or many nodes. You can have as many nodes as you want in a room. There's a big room called Echolink. It's the most popular room. That's what it looks like. Look at all those nodes. There's 127 nodes in that room. That's crazy, man. There's people talking in there all the time. And you can see all the call signs from around the world. Versus a typical room looks like that. You can see there's a little rectangle, and in the rectangle, there's all these tiles, and each tile represents a node. So I'm looking at the purple part at the middle of the screen. That's actually the room, and you can see all the nodes in the room. Here, you can see the room and all the nodes in the room. That's a really busy room. This is what you get on the data side of Fusion. You're going to get compass headings. You're going to get their mileage. You can get all kinds of stuff. When they're transmit, you get this data on your screen. You can actually toggle and look at this data. It's really cool stuff. So that's one thing that Fusion gives you. Oh, in DMR world, do you have tones in the DMR world?
Color code.
Color codes. What do you have in Fusion? You don't have color codes. You don't have tones. You have DGIDs. They're called DGIDs. So if you want to have a repeater and you don't want the public to use it, you got to switch the DGID. You got 0 through 99. So if you have a Fusion repeater and people transmit 0, 0, it means no tone or no DGID. If you put a 50 on it, that means every radio that wants to use it has to have DGID of 50. You got a receive and a transmit, kind of like a tone, transmit and receive. In the DMR world, you only have a color code, but in the Yaesu world, you have DGID transmit and DGID receive. 0 means it's all open.
No, that goes on your phone, on the radio, right?
Yes. The repeater and the radio.
Yeah.
The node, the repeater. So in the WIRES-X software, it doesn't know how to it doesn't know the difference between a repeater node, a neighborhood node, or a personal node. It treats everybody the same. The node knows, but the room doesn't know. It just, it treats you all the same. So so every node typically is set to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. I just use 0, 0, but once in a while, you might find one with DGID, a different, and if you can't transmit and it's not keying up and you're right next to the repeater, if you know you're in range, check your DGID. Absolutely. Sometimes people accidentally get these set wrong, and then they're trying saying, I can't get this thing to work. And go into your setting and check your DGID. And this is a cool thing. Group monitoring. You can see when all the people transmit. Again, this is a handy talkie, and it shows you compass headings and mileage and all kinds of good data. So you can toggle this and see this information on your this is an FT3D. This is actually my radio. WIRES-X. All right. I'm going to tell you, do you have any questions so far? This is coming toward the end. I mean, not really, I mean, I can go all night, but I'm gonna talk about WIRES-X nodes, how to create your own node. How are we doing on time? We okay?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. Flag me if I start, flag me when you want me to start wrapping it up, like just wave at me or get my attention, because I can see Rob. So I'm looking at you, Rob.
Uh-oh.
All right. So I know this is really complex and it's really hard to grasp this. And again, I'm going to go to that executive summary at the end. I really want you to know that. So that's the most important thing about Fusion. So everything else is, okay, you're going to get familiar with, you have to hear this thing like 3 or 4 times to start getting used to it. But I have to say, I guarantee you it's a lot easier than DMR. DMR is really complex. Okay, let's talk about WIRES-X. Again, I told you, I mentioned it, you need an HRI 200 pre-2019, or if you have a repeater, you need an HRI 200. Some people like to have the HRI 200, so they use it, but you don't have to have them. The new radio is out now, is the FTM 200. It's really designed to be a really good node radio. So if you want to put a neighborhood node together like I do, where it transmits, I only use 5 watts because of the duty cycle. It's I do have a fan blowing on it all the time, but sometimes I go into a room and you have to remember that not only does it transmit on the transmit, it transmits on the receive. So it accepts your transmit and then it transmits back at you. So it's constantly transmit, receive on a simplex node. So I have a fan and I don't want to put it up above 5 watts. That is my huge recommendation. Otherwise you're gonna, if you don't care and you can go through radios, that's fine if you want to burn it up. Okay, the FTM 100 is discontinued. To put a node together, a really good classy node, I would recommend the FTM 200 because it has really good heatsink technology. It was made to replace the FTM 100, and it's got more color, more really cool picture, graphics, much better than the FTM 100. It looks very similar to the other Fusion radios, but it makes a really good node radio. So this is the one I recommend if you want to put your own node together. And you, again, you don't need, with the new firmware, you don't need an HRI 200. Okay, what do? This is the only time you register. The only time. If you just want to use a radio, you don't have to register. But if you want to use a node or a room and you want to put your own node together, you got to register either the HRI 200 or you got to register the radio. And you go to the website and you register. They send you an email and then you get an ID. And then you can get up and running. Now, I have a bullet point toward the end where, let's see, if you want to establish your own room, if you have a new club or you want to start an astronomy room, and I want to attract people with astronomy, and we can go to an astronomy room and have an astronomy net. You have to buy an HRI 200 to start that room. That's really the only reason you need one, in my opinion. So there you go. So again, in a DMR world, you have to register your call sign. In a Yaesu world, you don't have to register your call sign. You have to actually register the node or the radio that's going to become the node, and or a room. Okay, the following radios can run in PDN mode. FT5D, FT3D, FT2D. Those are the handy talkies, and they use an SCU39 cable kit. So it comes with, you have to buy the cable kit. It's really kind of a ripoff. They charge $70. I hope Yaesu doesn't hear me say this, but yeah, it's kind of expensive. So you have to buy the cable kit and you can connect your radio. So when I travel, I bring my FT3D with my cable kit and bring my FT70D. Now I don't need two radios because I can connect my radio and talk on my radio connected to my laptop, but that's not very fun. And I have a cord attached. No, I toggle this into an HRI mode and I can leave it next to my laptop, and then I can walk around the whole, my daughter's yard, backyard, front yard, all over the houses, and I can use my radio and control this radio, which is just tied like a little brick to the computer. That's what I travel. Now, for a bigger picture, you can use an FTM 300. You can register that, an FTM 200, register that, or an FTM 400, or use an older FTM. And you have to buy the SCU 40 cable kit, and you have to download the Wires X PC software. Now, Windows 11 came out and they screwed everything up. So with Windows 11, Yaesu had to come out with a new cable kit. So if you have Windows 11, it's you got to use this chart. You have to buy either the SCU 57 or the SCU 58 versus Windows 10, which was the SCU 39 and SCU 40. I don't want you to memorize that by any means. Please do not. Just remember that we only used to have two, for 39 for a handy talkie and 40 with the main radio, but now we've got 39 and 40, but now we have 57 and 58 with Windows 11. Oh man, how complicated can you get? Just FYI, this is what it looks like when you connect. So this is my Wires X station. This is just the way it looks. I have an older laptop that connects this cable system into my computer, my radio, or The radio, this is the back of my mobile radio, and the cable goes right in the back like that, and USB, and then the speaker and the mic. Now, if you have a newer laptop and you want to use analog, you have to have a USB interface to do the speaker and the mic. It's designed, I don't know what, it's kind of silly, but they designed it the old way. Remember the old sound cards with the pink and the green? The cables, that's what that was designed for. And what this does is the digital goes into the USB and the analog goes through the speaker mic. Or you can just get rid of that and just do the digital only if you're just going to do digital. But Fusion can actually do analog and digital. That's a whole nother thing too. This is the way the WØSUN station looks. So when I travel, I bring my laptop with one cable and I connect it to my laptop. It's great. All right, so PDN mode, and I can toggle in direct, where in my hand station, I can go in direct mode and talk on my radio connected directly to my laptop. I'm not putting out a signal, or I can toggle it and it shows my frequency, and then I can walk around and drive around and hit that frequency. That's actually my picture of my WØSUN node right there. So the good, Yaesu Digital works well. This is the really, really good stuff. Yaesu is awesome, it's easy, AMS is awesome, audio is superb, it's simple, it's designed for ham radio. The bad, it's a closed system similar to D-Star. WØSUN requires PCs running Windows versus other systems which can do Linux or whatever. And it's a little bit expensive compared to DMR. I mean, I think D-Star is more expensive, especially with the new handy talkie they just came out with. But at the time I designed this, it was more expensive than DMR. And it is a little bit more pricey than DMR, but it saves you so much time. It's so much easier. So it evens out in the long run. And this is actually a little demonstration I did with my FT70D. It doesn't have a WØSUN button. It requires 2 buttons, but this is what it looks like when I manipulate WØSUN. It's not so user-friendly because it's just very archaic. You just put in numbers. Versus the newer laptops, it's very graphic on the color screen. I mean, the new handy talkies, the FT3 and the FT5, they got really nice screens. Okay, and I really don't want to talk about the Colorado rooms. I think that's it. That's my presentation. Let me show you. How do I stop? I'm going to see how I can stop the presentation. Stop sharing. There we go. All right. Let me just show you. Hang on 1 second. I want to show you the difference. So I'm going to try to do this. See if I can. I can't do that. No. You can't really see it, can you? Anyway. So if I, yeah, it's trying to go into WØSUN mode. Yeah, there we go. Hold on, let me, wow, okay. Let me, I was gonna try something, but maybe I won't. Anyway, I was gonna see if I could show you my radio, but you won't be able to see it. But what I can show you is this. Let's see, I can't see Rob. Where's Rob? Did Rob disappear? Okay,
No,
you're there.
I was here. Okay.
Okay, are you flagging me? Okay, I was looking at you to see if,
No,
let
I'm
me
not
see.
flagging you.
Okay, let me share this screen. This is cool. Share. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Let me make it big if I can. Is that, I don't know if you can see that. That's my Wires-X node. So let's say I'm using a repeater. So I got my radio here, and in actuality, if you think about it, I'm not really controlling the repeater. I'm going through the repeater to control the Windows computer. Behind every Fusion Wires-X repeater, there's a computer somewhere. So I'm actually using the repeater to get me to the computer so I can change screens. So I go into Wires-X mode. Okay, so now I'm in Wires-X mode. Did you hear that little tone? I'll do it again. So I don't know if you can, oh, my microphone's here. What am I doing? Okay, it's not on my computer. So but watch the screen. Let's see, I'm gonna go. So I get this little tone, and then I can go and choose my screen here. So I'm gonna choose a different room. And I'm using my radio, and I'm gonna watch the computer. And what I'm gonna make this list less, get rid of that screen. So this little thing is this is actually the room right here. Yeah, so I need that actually too. I don't have a big enough computer to show you, but let me just put this room here, and I got all these different nodes. So what I want to do is go into a different, okay, 3, 2, 1, control it. It's going to jump and go to a different room. And now I have different nodes. So really that's pretty cool. I can go into this room right here. Let's go into this really busy room. That's a really busy room. That's Echolink. Or I can go to SKYHUBLINK right here. Yeah, it's trying. Try it again. Huh. That room doesn't seem to be working. That's all right. But you get the idea. So that's how easy it is to use your radio and control and go into different rooms. So it's really fun. The neat thing I like about Wires-X and Fusion is it's just so cool and fun to do that. I can go all around the world with just really easy buttons. With the Yaesu FT70D, you can save 5 of your favorite rooms and easily switch between them all. Let me try that SKYHUBLINK room. Yeah, there we go. So that's pretty neat. And oh, the Colorado HD, my favorite room. Rob, you used to use this room, and I've actually just recently connected. Oh, that wasn't it. Hang on. The Wires-X over to Colorado HD. So now not only do we have DMR, we have Wires-X now. So you can get to wires X. In fact, Bud's probably listening. I could probably talk to Bud right now, W0RMT. He remembers you as well, Rob. So he actually guessed and knew it was you. So I know you used to get on that. All right. Any questions on anything digital? Anything about wires X or Fusion? Let me just test you. What was at the bottom layer of the Yaesu radio? What protocol? They used FM, and what else? What other mode do they use? Every Yaesu radio uses
C4FM.
C4FM, right? So what makes Fusion other than C4FM? I mean, what if I was to say, yeah, okay, Fusion is also C4FM, but it's much more because of
Come on, someone's out there. Bueller.
automatic mode select, AMS. AMS is what makes Fusion. Also, you can do this. This is really cool. You can take a wires X interface. You can connect a Kenwood radio. If you get the right wiring, you can connect a repeater, an analog repeater, or you can create your own repeater with two Motorola radios, connect it to a wires X, and in Colorado. And in Atlanta, I can do the same thing with an analog homemade repeater and connect the two with wires X, but it's not digital. I'm using the wires X network to connect two analog repeaters. We have an analog repeater that's connected into a wires X room that works really good with another analog. Now, when you define the room, you have to define it as digital only or digital and analog. So rooms can be digital only, so it does not allow an analog node into the room. But there are analog nodes out there. People buy a wires X HRI. This is the one reason why you want to have an HRI 200 is if you want to have an analog repeater connected through the wires X network. If you define the room to be analog and digital, then the two can speak and share the same space, and they will talk to each other. It doesn't sound the best. The audio is not very good because the analog is really quiet and you sound like a mouse, and the digital is really loud, but you can do it. I think the better use of it is to use the wires X system to connect two analog nodes or repeaters together. So that's really cool. That's another reason they call it Fusion, is because it fuses the two worlds together. Or automatic mode select, it'll automatically understand if it's getting an FM signal or a C4FM signal and switch the two. So it can do that. Must be having internet problems because my wires X is going up and down. That's kind of weird. Anyway, so so again, what makes it Fusion? Automatic mode select. Let me
Yeah, it's in there somewhere.
yeah, I know. There we go. So this one right here, this is the most important slide, I think, is if you come out with anything from this presentation, understand how the wires X works. It does FM and C4FM. Fusion has AMS, and you go into wires X mode. And you connect to the wires X network. Now there's other networks out there, but you have to go through a hotspot to get to them, and you have to bridge the two together. So if you go through a hotspot, it doesn't automatically get you into the WIRES-X Yaesu world. Most people take those reflectors and they bridge it over to the world. So when you buy an HRI 200 and you establish your own room, Yaesu gives you a big front door saying, here's your room, here's your door, have fun. This is the Yaesu world. We don't want to hear what you do with the hotspot world. We don't want to hear transcoding. This is not Yaesu. No, we like our quality. We like our fusion. It's the best. This is Yaesu. Have fun. You get your front door. How do you get a hotspot into your room when they don't connect to each other? You got to build a bridge. So you got to buy a Linux box. You got to put it in the cloud, or you put it on your shelf and connect it to the internet and allow people to use a hotspot to connect to a reflector. And then you have to build a bridge into the WIRES-X room. And there's different strategies to do it. It's very difficult because it's a very closed system. So one secret is you put the hotspot on the same frequency as the radio, and every time somebody transmits, it creates a little RF bridge. It wastes the, it costs a lot of money because you got to buy an extra radio and you got to buy an extra hotspot, but it creates a bridge. So there's other strategies too, but you got to bridge the two together to get from a hotspot into the Yaesu world. So that's one thing you got to remember. Hotspot does not equal Yaesu, but you can bridge the two together. So that's another thing I want you to remember. Any questions on that? I'm about done. If there's no more questions.
I got a question. Someone's got to have questions out there. Apparently not. So if I get a radio, I unbox the radio, then I guess I need to put in, it's like a code plug. I would need to put the channels in there that I'm going to want to use. Like I would put some entry in there for the Stone Mountain repeater with its frequency and DGID, and any of the other repeaters, local repeaters, I guess, that I can hit RF. And beyond that, I would enter, when I wanted to go into a room, I would manually do that through the keyboard on the phone on the radio every time I wanted to switch to a room. So
in order to use Stone Mountain, let's say the frequency is like, let's say it's 448.5 megahertz or something like that, right? So all you have to do is, you have to put the plus and, you have to have the offset of, it's a repeater, but you just put in digital and the offset, put it in a memory slot. You don't have to worry about tones. And by default, you don't have to worry about DGIDs. Don't even think about DGIDs. I never do. So you just put that in your memory slot. The one thing you have to worry about is you have to know if it's an AMS repeater. Most repeaters aren't. I do have a repeater that I support that I did make it AMS because it's a smaller club. Parker Radio Association, the repeater I put together for them, uses AMS mode. So, but we don't get a lot of use. And it's kind of cool because I can get on the internet and go digital, but hit with the FM tone 100, it goes analog, and we can have a little private conversation and they won't hear us on the digital side. But so the most important thing you have to know is it just digital? And I'm going to assume it's yes. So it's really easy. You don't have to worry about code, color code. You don't have to worry about time slot. You don't have to worry about anything except for how much power. And that's it, the frequency. There is an AMS button on your video, so you have to know if it's in AMS mode or not. If it's just purely digital, I would turn AMS off. And you can see that with digital narrow plus a line, that means AMS. If it doesn't have a line, it's just there's no AMS involved, but I don't expect you to remember that. Just put in the frequency and the repeater, and that's about it. That's all you have to worry about. It's so ham radio friendly, so easy to use. Now, once you transmit, you don't have to go into WIRES-X mode. You just transmit and just use the repeater. The only time you want to go into WIRES-X mode is when?
Change rooms.
When I what?
You said that to change rooms?
Yeah, to change rooms. That's it. So I'm just changing rooms. I want to disconnect it from the room and I want to go to another room or, node, same thing, but most nodes don't accept you
So
unless
if I
they
get a
configure.
Stone Mountain repeater on my radio, I don't know what room it's sitting in at that point. It could be sitting with a node in France. So I have no idea really where it's going unless
Here's the big thing that people gripe about. How do I know what room it's in? I could transmit and think I'm on the local club and I could be in France and I don't even know it. Oh man, that happens so many times. That is a big gripe. And I don't know the answer. It's like, use etiquette. I'm going to disconnect it from the room and I'm going to connect it to Paris, France. And somebody comes along and they don't know it, they're like, I didn't want to talk to Paris. How am I supposed to know? I just went to use the repeater. And I was just having that conversation the other day. So I didn't know, the only answer I have is put it into WIRES-X mode and you can see where what the room says. Once you hit WIRES-X, it'll tell you what room you're in, the node and the room. And you can search for different nodes and go all over the place. It's really great. It's easy. So I would worry about it if there's some person that, when you go in, change the repeater and move it into another room. Some people think they're only using their own radio. They think when they go into the repeater and they switch rooms, that they're the only ones that can hear that the rest of the world on the repeater stays and that they just moved their own self into another room. And I've had people use the repeater all day long and go to room after room after room, and it just gets old and old and old. And I'm like, so finally I have to get on there and I go, hey, how are you doing? What's your call sign? I'm the administrator of this repeater. By the way, you're using this repeater a lot and you're moving it into different rooms. Did you know that when you do that, you bring the whole repeater with you and everybody goes listening into this repeater into the room with you, and they go, I did not know that. I did not know that. I'm so sorry. And they go, that's okay. Just, use it save it, don't use it for 12 hours a day. Maybe use it for 5 and we'll forgive you, or whatever you want to say. So you can
like
put,
D-Star.
what's
D-Star
that?
does that. D-Star does that when you switch reflectors on the repeater, right? The whole repeater switched over there.
Yeah, same thing as D-Star. It's very similar to D-Star, except D-Star, you download the whole database into your radio. With WIRES-X, it downloads it a page at a time. So you don't need to store anything in your radio. It downloads it for you. It starts with the busy ones first, and then you go down to the non-busy ones, or you could search with letters and things like that. Yeah, so timeout timer, you can put a timeout timer. Typically, I put 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, it finds its way back home. So that's how that works.
Peter
Any other-
finds back home.
What's that?
Peter finds its way.
Yeah,
back
it
home?
finds its way
On the
back to its
repeater.
home base room.
Yeah.
So if I have a room called the Parker Radio Association and somebody leaves it on Echolink, after 30 minutes, it'll find its way back to Parker Radio Association. You can have it with no timeout timer or anywhere from 0 to 60 minutes.
Yeah, you want that.
Yeah, so I recommend putting a timeout timer. Any other questions? That's a good question.
Well, somebody out there got to have some question.
So again, yeah, you just know that now you know the term wires X can mean the network. It can mean the firmware, the mode. It has multiple meanings. It could be a wires X PDN, a personal digital node. I want to put together a wires X node. What that means is I want to put a node to get me onto the wires X network. And you use wires X mode to get into the network and move rooms and move your repeater into different rooms. C4FM is the modulation method. Fusion is the brand name that Yaesu put on its version of C4FM because they added AMS and other features to it. So that's it. That's the summary, man. That's the key that I want you to remember is these building blocks.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, either everybody understands it or it's irrelevant. But
Yeah. One
this.
thing that you can do, one thing that's cool is you can put together, get a 5-watt FTM 200 and put yourself a 5-watt radio with a decent antenna up on a building somewhere and start that way and put yourself a fusion system together where people can hit it and you can start using fusion right away while you wait to get your frequency coordinated for a repeater. So that's what I do. So
Yeah.
I start doing
Our
that.
challenge is, yeah, we're at the top of a bank building with all the repeaters, and they don't want us adding any antennas, and that's been limiting. You know, we had some opportunities to get some things over the years. In fact, we turned down the Yaesu. We had the Yaesu offer at the beginning. I think it was almost free for the repeater, and we just couldn't,
yeah, it's so cheap.
you know, we couldn't do it. But great, this has been wonderful. I know I've got a lot out of it, and I hope everyone else did. They did. They're just quiet.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me talk to you today. And if you have any questions, you can reach me on Colorado HD 31088. I listen to it all the time. And I do the digital learning net every week, again at every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on SKYHUBLINK.com. It'll give you the DMR 310-847. So I do that net, and then I sit there on 31088 and talk. We you know, you got Bud and Jimmy and Ivan and all of us guys on that Colorado HD net. We're still listening, and we're on there all the time.
Yeah, I remember Ivan too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put out that's in the blurb that you sent. I think had some of that information about where you can be found.
Yeah,
Yeah.
find me on QRZ, and you can get all that information on QRZ too. Thank you.
Because there've been probably people having questions offline. Maybe they just don't want to publicly ask.
That's fine. Yeah, shoot me an email. My email is W0SUN.Bucky@gmail.com or W0SUN.Bill@gmail.com. It goes either way. And shoot me an email, and I'll be glad to help you out. Thank you for letting me present. I really enjoyed teaching, getting the fusion revolution going. Thanks a lot for helping me spread the joy.
I appreciate that. The video should be up on YouTube in a couple of days.
Oh,
And
hey,
I'll
send me a link.
send you the link. Yeah, I'll send you the link when it's up there.
All right, sounds great.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you. Thank you for that. It was very informative. A lot to digest. That's
Yeah, that's why I keep going to the summary. Just remember the summary, and I'll be happy. That, but yep. Thanks, guys. Is it okay if I disconnect?
Yeah, go ahead and do. Yeah, do what you got to do. Thank you again. Thank you so much, and I'll be in contact with you.
Thank you, Rob, very much.
Have a
And
great- have a great
yeah,
evening.
I'll follow up with an email, and I'll send a copy of my presentation.
That's even better. Thanks. I
Okay,
appreciate
you
that.
bet. You bet. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah, good night. 73. So John's not here to continue. I know. I got an idea. I'm going to turn it over to our vice president to fill in for John. So, program director out. Hello, Bill.
Hey, well, I don't have much to add. Can y'all hear me? I've been tinkering around with the thing muted. Am I
You're
still
good.
muted? Yeah, it says I'm muted on here.
We can hear you.
Anyway, I've played with Fusion off and on over the last couple of years. And I don't think there's any secret. Y'all know I got into DMR and jumped into it with both feet. And not to take away from tonight's presentation, I do have a Fusion radio here, and I've sat down and played with it some and just never really dug into it that much. So yeah, this might be something when he posts, and again, there's a lot of information and he went through a lot of it pretty quickly, and I didn't hear a lot of questions. So I'm going to wait for the video to be posted and go back through it in more detail. How many people on tonight's meeting actually got interested in Fusion that may not have thought about it much before? Speak up.
That's a great question.
Well, I'm interested, but I don't have a Fusion capable radio. So for me, it's not in the near future.
Yeah. I was looking at the website when he was talking about there not being many out here. There are quite a few Fusion repeaters around, but most of them seem like they're outside the Atlanta area, like in Brunswick. And that's where the rabbit farmer used to talk about the wind blowing during the Skywarn sessions. There's a couple in Savannah, but I didn't see any around real close. So
Alfred's got one.
Yeah, there was one.
Executive Park or wherever that is over, not Executive Park, but over, yeah, that outside the perimeter there.
Don't know how tall it is. There's one in Hall County as well, but I have a sneaky feeling it's sitting on the roof of somebody's house. Anyway, I see Rob has a cat. My neighbor's cat, they moved, and I asked them if they would leave Oscar the cat with me. Since he seemed to like my house more than he liked theirs. And they said, no, it belonged to their son. So Oscar doesn't come and spend the days with us anymore. Anybody got any more comments they want to make? Everybody going to be at the Stone Mountain Ham Fest Saturday and come by the club table and say hi and possibly renew your dues if they're due. And so after what happened to John? He's supposed to be running this thing. John
He
has
had to
left.
pick up his son at the airport.
Oh, okay. We'll let him pass this time.
I want to say thank you for hosting this. I'm not part of the Atlanta group, although I've been in Atlanta for many years, and but I lived in mainly for Forsyth, so I was Sony Mountain guy. So, but anyway, thank you for hosting this, and I'm new to Fusion, so I did learn some things that I didn't know, but didn't really have any questions. But again, thank you, and good night. You guys see you at the Hamfest, and HRO will love you if you buy a new radio from them.
Welcome to the meeting, and do drop by the ARC table Saturday sometime. John and I will be there. I think he's got some other people signed up, and we usually host a service where if you've got more stuff you want to carry, you can park it behind the table, and we'll keep an eye on it for you while you walk around. So keep that in mind too. Anybody got anything else they want to throw in tonight?
Yeah, the video should be online in a couple of days in the Atlanta Radio Club channel on YouTube.
Okay.
All the videos since summer 2 years ago are in that channel. So this one will be up, and I'll send a note out to everybody when it's out. So just look for that.
Most of them I can keep up with, but he was throwing a lot of details around, and I want to go back and kind of look at it again. And I think I'll crank out that HT and just see what I can do with it. All right. Anybody got any?
Hear what you think about it? Yeah, when you actually start playing with it.
Yeah, well, God knows I need to buy another radio. I just, you know, we got this Ham Fest, and there's one in Greenwood that I go to in January, and then Dalton is coming up like 2 months. So yeah, we gotta, and I'm thinking I want to buy a 710 for Christmas. I've got that bug in my tail to do that now. All right. So anything else going once?
Lunch tomorrow, 12:30. Melon mushroom Brookhaven.
Ah, cool. Okay. Yeah.
EHM was there last week, Bill.
Do what?
EHM was at lunch with us last week.
I
Michael.
saw that. The place I work, I'm just up the road. You know, I could run over there probably in 15 minutes, but the people I work with are kind of funny. If you take an hour and 1 minute for lunch, they want to know, you know, anything happened. They act like we have a time clock, even though we don't. All right, let's try it again. Going once, going twice. All right, we'll see y'all next month and tomorrow and Hamfest. Bye-bye.